On this episode of the Leadership Hustle, we're going to discuss the difference between a succession plan and a replacement plan. Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Hustle for executives whose companies are growing fast and need leaders who are ready. Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Leadership Hustle. I'm Andrea Fredrickson, and I'm joined with my co-host, Michelle.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle. How are you feeling?
Oh, the seasonal head cold, so I'm sorry. I've got a little bit of fog going on, I think.
All right. We're doing one more episode today, and this is a topic that is related to all of the people who are getting ready to retire, who have found their next role, people who are moving around, and there's a lot of them. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but
Yes.
It just seems like everybody's moving, or people are getting ready to retire, or people are getting ready to go on these, they're just changing, right?
A lot of change happening.
So if your succession plan starts with, who's going to take my role, you're starting in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And yet I hear it all the time. So,
Yes.
somebody will ask, or not even ask, they'll say, so-and-so is going to take over my position when I leave. Really? Tell me more about that. That's the question. So you're assuming that the business is going to be the same.
Yeah.
Marketing is going to be the same. Structure and the
A lot of
path is gonna be-
assumptions.
it's all going to be the same.
Nothing's changing, yet the world is changing.
Right.
Everything is changing. And, so is your business, the structure of how you're moving it forward, adjusting and recognizing what our needs are in 5 years, and I don't mean 5 years. 5 years there's so much change.
There's a lot of change in 5 years, but we have to be prepared for 5 years.
Correct. What are those things that we're looking at, and what does our organization need? What might be different, and so forth, based off what's happening, and evaluating that.
So, for those of you that have ever been to our office, we have these 2 walls full of dry erase boards, these stainless steel dry erase boards, and I love them. And one of my favorite memories in all the times we are there is when we get to work with the senior leaders, and maybe it's 1 or 2, the small group, and say, okay, where is our organization going? What's the next big
Thing.
the thing, where are we changing direction? Are we going to have a different product or service? Are we going into larger other locations? What is
Technology?
That
ripples big time.
So much change in what's going on. Where do we want the organization to go? What is our BHAG, or what is our 20-mile march, or what is our 10X? Whatever the question is that people are asking these days, right? And so we mess with that because we have to get clear and put our stake in the sand and say, this is what we're going to be doing. And are there course
based off what we know right now?
Yes, we can course correct, but this is the direction, and our route is going to be in that direction. And when we do that and we start asking the question, so what skills do we need to have that we don't have today? They just look at me like, oh yeah. Right? Because the org chart today may not work for the organization of tomorrow.
Correct.
So,
And they don't necessarily, there's a lot of assumptions that that's just going to be the same. It's a plug and play.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it a plug and play?
That's a replacement plan, not a strategic or a succession plan.
Correct.
Right? So if we look at this, and this is not an easy thing, this is a simple process. Okay? The simple process is you have to decide strategically where you're going first. People more often think it's the leadership succession that is first, and that's the last step, right? Well, not the last step, but it's a later step.
Yes.
So where are we going? What are we going to look like? What are the skills that we're going to need? And then we look at, now, how are we organized?
Yes. Not how we are currently.
No.
How do we need to be organized to move that forward?
Right. So how many companies have we known where their leadership team is like 15 people? I'm like, that's a lot of people to be at that leadership level. And as a company grows, sometimes it's like, because they don't want to offend anybody, they don't want to leave anybody out, they don't want anybody mad, so they just let everybody, y'all come, as they say, right? It's like, So there's usually some process where we create another level of executives, 3 to 5 people, CEO / owner / president, whatever title that is, right? And then their go-tos. Whether it's their cabinet or their C-level, it's usually somebody in sales or growth and sales, somebody in charge of people and development, somebody in charge of operations, somebody in charge of finance. Now you can add others, but they're
sales / marketing. Those two are usually different.
Depends on the size of the organization.
Depends on the size of the organization. That one gets overlooked or meshed. Oh, and IT, your technology.
And IT could be any one of those. And so there's a small group of folks. But then depending upon the organization, do we need some other specialty? Is there some, do we combine marketing into sales and that becomes the area of growth, right? Is there an area where technology is part of operations, and so that's who's leading it, and maybe that's who's leading through change. Maybe we have somebody who's in charge of people, but it's more not just people, it is support, all the support kinds of functions, and we organize it differently. So looking at how do we need to organize our company, our organization, so that it is well represented, but also everybody has equal.
It's a good balance.
It's a good balance, right? And is it organized by matrix? Is it organized by departments? Is it organized by region? Is it, all those kinds of things have to be put into place. And so you look at those. Is your organization a sales organization? Now, some people would say, all organizations are sales organizations. Somebody has to buy what you're delivering, right? And so is this organization more operational? So you look at all of these different things, like how does the organization need to be structured? And as I was talking about those dry erase boards, I remember multiple times looking at, here's scenario A, here's scenario B, here's scenario C, and there were no names. They were just boxes related to information. What kinds of information or what kind of knowledge needed to be available for those different things? So when you get to that point, do you have any suggestions as to other ways other than drawing it on dry erase boards or things like that to help find what their organization should look like?
I have seen there's that whole sticky note concept, which sometimes it's big sticky notes.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get the small ones on the big ones. But it's the idea that, and you can do this on a dry erase board, but it's the idea that we can, as we are having productive conversations, we can move things. Because just once we put it there doesn't mean it's stuck there, right? And so I think being able to feel that people can have that ownership of, this is what I believe in, moving things.
Sure.
So that's where the big stickies, small stickies, there's that movement. There's a lot that can be done with.
Okay.
I would say that's a big one, which is similar to the dry erase board-ish, So
I also see part of this as, what are we going to stop doing? So it's not just what roles and information, but it was like, we don't need to do this anymore. We don't. This is taking away resources that are necessary for us to go this direction. So yes, we want to know what direction we're going. We want to know what skills we're going to need, but it's also recognizing we're no longer going to do this.
Yes, especially if you have technology involved.
Tell me more.
Well, when you are rolling out new systems, new platforms and so forth, because now that, what can it do? And obviously as AI comes into place as well, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but what are the things that we used to do that if we do move in this direction, we won't need to do any longer? It'll be automated. Where we're being more efficient and accurate.
Right.
And so things will just change on what roles and responsibilities look like a little bit, because some of these things we might lean into technology. Something as simple as a CRM.
Sure.
You know, if an organization doesn't have an official CRM and a sales group is inputting things into Excel spreadsheets and so forth, then they're coming up with reporting off of those Excel spreadsheets. I mean, there's a lot of manual work going on there.
Sure.
But we get a CRM that's really built out. The role changes where we need to input here, and the output, we have to have the right input to get the good output.
Right.
But
we also have to make sure that people are using whatever the system is and not doing the workarounds.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. But that can change the dynamic of some responsibility. Now you have support staff that maybe used to run certain reports because they'd blend spreadsheets or whatever. They don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
Now they're still going to add value. They're going to add value differently.
So looking at what kinds of things, are we going to outsource? What kinds of things are we going to automate? What are the kinds of things that we are just not going to do anymore because
don't need to?
It may be fun. It might be a person's pet project, but it is taking resources. Sidebar to this conversation, we were talking about efficiencies, that there's a lot of activity that people do that actually add more requirements of people. So what I mean by that is when people have to chase other people down, it's not automated, right? Somebody has to hand something in, somebody has to fill out a report, somebody has to do extra data input, somebody has to complete something. All those things that have to be done in order to make the business work. When people have to remind other people, people have to chase it down. It takes time to write the email, it takes time to send the information, it takes time to get frustrated about it, it takes time to talk about to my neighbor because that's not happening.
Yep.
And then the person receiving it has a stack full of emails that may be reminders of things from 8 different people because they're already behind on things. So all this time is causing us to have to add more people because it's sucking time away from productivity, right? So that's where I'm really wanting to emphasize, what are we going to stop doing? We're going to stop chasing things. We're going to stop reminding people to do things because that's what they're supposed to do.
Correct. Well, and I think there's the start, though, clarity and expectations up front.
Yeah.
Because what one person might have in mind when they need something, if they don't express that, the other person's not going to know it.
Right. So there's pretty clarifying conversations and things like that.
Up front.
That's different than for the last 3 years, I've had to every Friday remind so-and-so to send me such and such.
Yes.
It's like, seriously, do I just put it on automatic? Then now their inbox is full of reminders because they don't have it figured out, right? So stopping doing things is just as much a part of this as what are we going to do. And then we can get to the real part of succession planning. What skills are going to be needed? History is not a predictor of future success.
Correct.
Right? And so we have to look at, do we need people who have a strategic perspective? Do we have people that can do real good critical thinking? Maybe we do, but we've never let them. Maybe we need to have people who make good decisions. Doesn't mean they make every decision correctly, but they make good decisions. Do we have people that are amazing at galvanizing people and getting people to move together and work together and solve problems together and get their fingers out of what, things are unnecessary for them to get involved with? So really thinking of, how are we going to organize our organization? Organize our organization. Let's do that again. But also, is the culture that we're building intentional to go along with that? And who do we need involved in building that culture and supporting it in the future? So this isn't simply a replacement plan, although that's the easy way. That's the easy button, and that's what people are looking at history. I've always done it this way, so I need somebody to replace me doing it this way. I came out of sales, they need to come out of sales. I came out of accounting, they probably need to have an accounting background. And so looking at, how are you organizing this? So let's recap this. First thing is, you need to decide as an organization, where are you going? What direction is the company going? That includes products, services, locations, culture. Who are we becoming, and what does that look like? Second is, how are we organized to support that goal? That's that direction.
Yes. What are the roles, responsibilities we need for that?
And third, who do we need to fulfill those skills? What skills do we need? What style do we need? Are there personalities? Are there experiences? Are there abilities to challenge the status quo? Are there people who are needing to break old habits so that we can move forward because they need to challenge the old way of doing things to do something new? So those three things are really key and critical in making sure that we're not just doing a replacement plan. And I was just on a call before we got together today, and they were suggesting that we had somebody have a webinar on succession planning. And literally all they said was, yeah, we need to figure out what are the skills that the person currently has so that we can have updated job descriptions so that we can recruit people on what the person was today. I'm like, oh, you don't get it. You don't get it. We need to do things different. Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this particular episode of The Leadership Hustle. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode.